Good morning and welcome, everyone. It is Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024, and it is 11:20 a.m. I call the Kapiolani Park Trustees meeting to order. I'd like to welcome Trustees Cordero, Tupola, Say, Waters, Wire, Okimoto, and Tolba. And Vice Chair Kiaina as well, who's stepping into the well now. Before we start our meeting, I have some procedural announcements to make. Pursuant to Section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony in person in the council chamber or remotely on all items on the agenda when each item is taken up. All persons who registered to testify in person will be called upon first, followed by those who registered remotely. I will then give persons who have not registered an opportunity to speak following the registered speakers. Before testifying, each person shall state their name for the record and will be limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. For remote testifiers, when your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. For those who are joining us by telephone only, please press star 9 to indicate your desire to speak. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at remote meetings to be conducted by roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, if any objections are noted, I will call for a roll call vote. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described in the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. Before we start, again, I will note that we had our budget meeting right before this. My intent is to keep this meeting as moving as efficiently as possible so we can get back to the budget committee meeting, which will resume after this. And then we have EMLA this afternoon as well. To begin with informational briefing item number 1, this is an update on the status of the Circuit Court's review of the Kapiolani Park Trustees' 11th triennial report of the Kapiolani Regional Park that was approved by the Kapiolani Park Trustees, that is all of us, on May 23rd, 2023. For your information, the report is available online as Departmental Communication 263 of 2023. Members, please note that we distributed a copy of Corporation Counsel's presentation to each of you, and it's available online as Departmental Communication 230 of 2024. We have with us Erica Osterkamp, the Deputy Corporation Counsel, who is helping us with this matter. So, Erica, please proceed.
Good morning, Chair. Erica Osterkamp, Deputy Corporation Counsel, on behalf of the Kapiolani Park Trustees, as you said, all of you. I'll keep this brief at your request. So you have my slide deck already. Generally speaking, the subject matter of this trust is generally Kapiolani Park. Oops. When people think of a trust, they usually think of a triangle. You have the trustees, you have the testator, and you have the beneficiaries. In this case, the beneficiaries of the trust are the general public. We all have a right to use this trust. As you stated, Chair, the trustees approved the report back in May in 2023. On June 1st, we submitted the petition for approval of the report to Circuit Court. Subsequently, the Office of the Attorney General requested additional information, which we provided in January of this year. And at the Attorney General's request, we have continued the hearing on the petition for approval of the report. So right now, the hearing is scheduled for June 20th, 2024. All standard, it's the same process that we went through for the last triennial report. If there are any questions, I'm available. Sorry, I had problems with the slide deck, so.
Members, any questions? Chair Waters.
Thank you. Thank you. The triennial report in question covers what period of time?
So it would be the last 3 years.
So that is through the end of 2022, is that correct?
Yes, and I was looking for the exact month. I believe it's May 2022.
Okay, so it's going backwards, it's not going forward, right? This
Correct.
triennial report.
Correct.
Okay, and what was the AG's concerns, if you can, in a nutshell?
They didn't really have concerns. They were asking for additional information, which is already publicly available, such as how can the public contact council members? How can they file a complaint? Information regarding meetings, how, like, budget agendas, which we provided.
Okay. And we complied with the Attorney General's request in January of this year?
Correct. We provided the requested information.
And you're saying that is it the Circuit Court
Correct.
is having a hearing in June to review the Triana report along with the Attorney General's request and our response?
Yes. So the way the Attorney Generals have phrased it, they are going to make recommendations after reviewing all the information, after reviewing the report. They're going to do that prior to the date of the hearing, and we'll have a chance to respond in writing to any filing that they submit. So their intention is to do that a few weeks before the hearing date.
Okay, what's the court's role in all of this?
So the court oversees the actions of the trustees. I'm glad you asked that question because the Attorney General, their role is to act as parents patriae. So they represent the interests of the general public, the beneficiaries.
And would this be or which judge? Which court would do the Circuit Court?
Castagnetti.
Castagnetti,
Yes.
and she is what's the legal term? What court does she preside over other than Circuit Court?
Probate court?
Probate court.
Yeah.
So she's the probate judge, right? So she
Correct.
would be the one to review our Triana report. And then what comes out of that hearing?
So generally, they approve our reports, which is what happened for the 10th triennial report.
And again, this report covers what? Is it from 2019 to 2022?
Yes, generally.
Okay. And then from 2022 to 2025, so what's currently happening now, that report is due when?
It's going to be due in another 3 years.
Okay.
Oh, I'm glad you asked. So the AG also asked whether any complaints had been filed. So for the prior 3 years, there hadn't been any complaints. And specifically regarding commercial uses, there hadn't been any for the reporting period.
So the reported period. Okay, so if there are current complaints with what the city is doing with Kapiolani Park, that's not going to be in the current report that's before Judge Castagnetti.
Correct.
Okay,
I mean, the AG might raise it, but it's not going to be part of the report.
I see. Can the judge do anything about those complaints? Because the report is only covering 2019 through 2022.
It's an equitable court. So I would say it's more likely for it to be a separate proceeding.
I see. And who has standing at this hearing coming up in June?
So for this one, it's
Correct.
City Council as trustees, the city, and the Attorney General's office acting as parents patriae. So those three.
Okay, and you are the council trustees
Yes.
attorney, and the city is represented separately?
Yes.
I see. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Tupola.
Thanks so much, Chair. Aloha, thank you for being here with us. On the park purposes, I was just reading on the bullet point, the third one. It says, trustees are expressly forbidden to enter into leases or deeds of land trust, but the Supreme Court has indicated that licenses are not forbidden. Briefly, could you describe to me the difference between a lease and a license, and what is an example of that?
So
I can also ask the director if you want.
Yeah, it might be more appropriate to bring this up in executive session. I can't give legal opinions, but generally speaking, the court went into that in the 1988 court case about the Burger King lease. It's for a certain amount of time, terminable at will. Anyway, there are other indicia, so we can get into that later.
Okay, thank you. Chair, are we going to go into executive session, or should I ask the
We
director?
will go into executive session at the end
Okay.
of all of this. Would that be appropriate, or should we?
Up to you.
Yeah, I think for the sake of it, we should save all the executive questions for the end. That way everyone else can go to lunch. Any other questions here? Vice Chair Kiaina.
Just a notation. I like, how you started off just by describing the land tenure. And you started with Act 53 from 1896 as opposed to 1877 when King Kalakaua dedicated the 200 acres. And I just think it's always important for context to provide the land tenure given the complexity of land tenure in Hawaii. Is there a reason you didn't start with 1877?
For purposes of this briefing, I was trying to keep it brief.
Okay.
We can go into.
So the only reason is it does matter because Sanford Ballard Dole has no legitimacy. He was a key player in the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii, as well as the unilateral annexation by the United States of the Hawaiian Islands. And so for you to be just citing that somehow he has any legitimacy in the future of this park, I just think is, it's just important to remember how these lands were taken into trust. And it was first taken into trust because King Kalakaua, like a lot of our ali'i at that time, they were open to sharing our lands with the general public. And of course, after he had given these lands, the political history of that time dispossessed the Native Hawaiian people of our lands. And all I'm just saying is I find it ironic, and I'll go into questions in the second agenda item, that we are having a discussion starting off with an act that Sanford Dole, that's all, because I don't think anybody who is questioning the legitimacy of the Kilohana Hula Show cares about the dispossession of Native Hawaiians post-1896. They don't care. They only care what suits them. And so that's all. I just wanted to just point that fact out to you, that in the future I would respectfully ask that you just put the context of how this was formed. And in my mind, it matters because there was a lot of political events that happened. And again, the irony is we're having to fight a modern day battle just to have our culture displayed. And we are going by the books, working in concert with the Department of Enterprise Services, and then we're questioned. So that's all. I'm just saying that history seems to repeat itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions pertaining to the info brief number 1, our 2020 to 2023 report, and specifically April 2020 to March 2023 activities? Okay. In that being the case, I just have one last question. Ms. Osterkamp, would you be willing to return after the June hearing if it's necessary?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. All right, members, at this time, we're going to go to public testimony on item number 1. I understand that there's a number of people here to testify on number 2, but that's the order we'll go in. We have one registered in-person testifier, Alethea Redman from the Kapiolani Park Preservation Society. And then if there's anyone else in person who would like to speak, please, on number 1, please line up on the side. If you could press the button on the right side, there we go.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to appear, but I had reserved the ability to comment on number 1, and I don't feel a need to do so right now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers who'd like to testify on info briefing number 1? Okay. Clerks, do we have anyone who'd like to testify remotely? I see we have Angela Melody Young.
Chair, not for item number 1.
Okay, so that's not for item number 1. Okay, very well. Members, now that we've completed the presentation, we're in discussion. Is there any discussion on agenda item number 1, that is our report to the court and the proceedings related to that report? Okay, hearing none. We're going to now move on to informational briefing item number 2. This is a presentation by the Department of Enterprise Services on the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement's Kilohana Hula Show to be held at the amphitheater in the Waikiki Shell. Members, please note that we distributed a copy of the department's presentation to each of you, and it's available online as Departmental Communication 228 of 2024. We have with us the Director of the Department of Enterprise Services, Dita Holyfield, to give this presentation. I will note that we do have on the agenda executive session, and we will be taking up the more difficult legal items there. I do plan on calling public testimony before that, so we can exhaust public testimony before we lock ourselves in this room for executive session. I'll also note that at this time, and perhaps the director can remind me, there's no active litigation with regard to this at this time.
We have no active litigation at this time.
Great. And I think that was part of the reason why we're having this meeting now is, there have been certain things reported in the media, and I wanted to make sure that everyone, including the public, was kind of clear on all the parameters of what's going on here, and that we as the council, or we as the trustees, can also have a discussion and fully understand any legal rights and implications with relation to the Kilohana Hula Show. So with that, we'll turn it over to the director to give her presentation.
Good morning. Thank you, council members. Thank you, executive committee, to invite me here today. I'm Dita Holyfield, Director of Enterprise Services, and it is my excitement and pleasure to reset the table and to share some news and just to make sure that we're clarifying where we're currently standing. The Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, known as CNHA, currently operates a free hula show at the amphitheater near the entrance of the Tom Moffat Waikiki Shell every Sunday to Thursday at 9:30 a.m. through a non-exclusive rental agreement with the City and County of Honolulu Department's Enterprise Services. The free hula show features a diverse cast of performers who share Hawaiian music, dance, and Hawaiian language with visitors and locals alike. Our rental agreement with CNHA is the city's standard form of agreement. The current rental agreement runs January the 19th, 2024 to September 15th, 2024. The Waikiki Shell will close for 3 to 4 months, starting in October of this year, 2024, for HECO and DDC's electrical upgrade projects. CNHA is currently working on a proposal for an evening show. For the remainder of the 2024 calendar year, the Waikiki Shell bookings include band projects, Hawaii Symphony Orchestra, Hawaii Opera Theater, national Christian artist Lauren Daigle, and also Toby Mac, to name a few. And just added, on May 1st, the 3rd annual May Day featuring hula and dance celebration, which will be a ticketed event.
Okay, that was a very brief presentation. Members, any questions for the director? Okay, hearing none. Thank you. If you can stick around in case there are questions that emerge. Oh, is that a hand? No, okay. Okay. So at this time, we'll open up testimony. I see that we have just 3 registered remote testifier. So I'm going to start there so we can exhaust that and then go to everyone here in person and we can close the remote portion. So I'd like to start with Donna Ching, if she's online.
Chair, testifier is not logged on.
Okay. Then Angela Melody Young.
Chair, testifier logged off.
Okay. And then there is a phone number starting with 808 and ending in 071. If that person would like to testify. Can unmute yourself. Going once. Going twice, going 3 times, and there we go. And if you could...
Hi, Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, and if you could identify yourself and then please proceed.
Yep. Hello, Chair, members. This is Jacob Aki speaking in my personal capacity. I stand in strong support of the council's efforts to operate the Kilohana Hula Show. You know, in the heart of our state, the park stands as a testament to the vision of creating spaces for recreation, amusement, and other cultural celebrations. Established in 1877, the park symbolizes the community's commitment to really enriching public life here. The challenges faced by the council in operating their cultural show at the Waikiki Shell really strikes at the core of our state's efforts towards fostering regenerative tourism. CNHA's efforts really, I believe, aligns with what the vision of the park was supposed to be, to really bridge a gap between the generations and to really share the richness of our culture here. As trustees and as council member, there really is a profound opportunity to really support these or to really support this work, and really by addressing the challenges faced by the council. You know, their work not only strikes and really aligns with the park's values, but it really also contributes to our broader goal of not just a better tourism model, but a model that incorporates our language and our culture. So really supporting their efforts is a step to ensuring that not just the park continues to be a vibrant showcase of what our language and culture is, but really a model for how we can ensure that our language, our culture, and our host people have the opportunity to engage in this, all of this work. So I really encourage you as trustees and you as council members to really support this. And if there is a need for a policy change, you are the legislative branch and you have the opportunity and what I believe the purview to really change these policies to really,
Thank you, Mr.
to really ensure that all of this goes forward. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, mahalo members, any questions for the testifier? Okay, seeing none. Clerks, is there anyone else standing by remotely to testify?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, there being none, we'll close remote testimony and we'll proceed with in-person testimony. We'll go in order of the sign-up sheet. We have Dr. Tricia Kapiolani Watson-Sproat, followed by Matthew Kapiolani-Sproat, and then Demont Kalai-Manaole, Tyler Iokapa-Gomes, and then Rick Eggett. Those are the first 5.
I guess I'm going in front of my wife. Aloha mai kako. My name is Matthew Sproat. I am a 7-time Nahoku Hano Award winner. I'm a full-time musician, but my specialty is in traditional Hawaiian music. I've been a full-time musician for over 12 years. Prior to that part of my career, I worked in Waikiki for almost 20 years as a Hawaiian culture advisor for a lot of the hotels there. But the reason why I want to testify is one of the things that I've seen, especially working in Waikiki for many years and also in my capacity as a musician, is watching what I call the erosion of the Hawaiian culture, especially in Waikiki. Throughout the many years that I performed in Waikiki, we saw it's just a drop. Anytime there's anything dealing with culture, we saw there was a drop. So myself as a musician and also as a practitioner, I fish the area of Waikiki. I've been fishing there for almost 30 years. And one of the things that I want to do, and the reason why I'm here, is I stand in strong support, because I'm glad that Esther Kiana mentioned Kalakaua, because I am currently on my way to Mary Monarch. And I've heard someone say that, whatever's happening at the Kapiolani Park, the king would not approve. I strongly, absolutely not. Mary Monarch was his name. They called him Mary Monarch because he was the one responsible for bringing back hula and the culture. So and music and everything. So I stand in strong support of what CNHA is doing at Kapiolani Park.
Thank you.
Aloha, everybody. My name is Dr. Tricia Kapiolani Watson Sproat, as in there. So first, just about me. I am a lifelong, I've lived in Waikiki, as Councilman Waters knows, my family very, very well. We've been there 5 generations. This was Lunalilo's lands. I'm very glad you brought up the land tenure. These were lands that were taken. So let me be clear, right? I have no idea how we are exalting anything Stanford Dole has done. This same government banned women from voting. It banned the Hawaiian language. It banned Chinese and Japanese immigrants from voting. So the fact that we are in any way focusing on anything he's ever done is just, I want to say pilau. I am also, through my PhD, Secretary of Interior, qualified in historic preservation. I've done this my entire life. It is, to me, it is absolutely consistent with what Kalakaua and our ali'i would have wanted, to uplift culture and bring it back to Waikiki. My family has fought very, very hard for our community, and it is very frustrating, very quickly, to watch people parachute in and tell us what we should do with our land and culture, and it has no place here. We support CNHA. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the first 2 testifiers? All right. The next up, we have Demont Clay Manaole, Tyler Iukapa Gomes, Rick Agid, and then Kuhio Lewis.
Hello, everybody. Demont Clay Manaole, co-manager of Hope Manapono LLC, a native wine advocacy corporation out of Waianae Coast, and we 100% support CNHA. And I'm so glad that Esther been bringing up about the lands, land tenure, and yes, it is Lunalilo land. What we have a situation here today is, I would compare that to the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine. Right now, you're considering something that the usurpers, the traitors of our nation, when take this land from us, and now they're dictating policy on how we can use our own lands. That's crazy. So let's go ahead and reverse the record. This is our lands. And to have our people be able to tell our own story in our own land is the greatest gift that we can give to the world. Waikiki is the #1 spot in Hawaii. Yeah, I used to be in the tour industry, and I used to have people tell me, Cousin D, how come no more Hawaiians over here? Tell them because they're going to chase us out to Waimanalo, Waianae. You like Lufu Hawaiians, we stay over there. So I just say to you, whatever CNHA is doing there is doing for the people of Hawaii. And this policy that you guys may be protecting if you support the opposition is you supporting the usurpers and the traitors of our nation. So I want you to reconsider that and know that CNHA is doing good for all of Hawaii. Aloha.
Aloha kako. Tyler Iukapa Gomes. I'm the Chief Administrator for Kilohana, testifying in my organizational capacity. You will hear the Preservation Society try to discredit all of the cultural and historical context and say this is purely a legal argument. And the fact of the matter remains that the question of whether or not it's a lease or a license comes out of their seminal case from 1988. The court in 1988 gave 9 specific criteria. This example barely meets one of them. And if there are questions what those 9 criteria are, I can answer them in the interest of my time. So if it's not a legal argument based on whether or not it's a lease or a license, it comes down to your fiduciary duty as trustees, which calls for you to be a prudent investor. In the last 91 days, the Shell and the amphitheater have only been booked 3 times. You are arguably ignoring your duty to be a prudent investor of the city's public trust resources by allowing the Preservation Society to promote the Shell being dark, shuttered, covered in barbed wire, and locked. That flies in the very face of the arguments that they've been making. They continue to ask for this to be open to the public, but in reality, they're only looking for exclusivity in a way that fits with their vision for the park. Mahalo.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Hi, could you give me the 9 criteria, please?
Sure. So the first is whether or not there's transfer of possession of the land asset. In the Burger King case, there was. Here, there is not. The second criteria is whether or not it's a fixed term. Arguably, there may be one here, but I can explain why it's not. The third is whether or not it's a definite parcel. There is a parcel in mind here, but I'll come right back to this, why these 2 criteria are arguably met. The fourth is whether or not the disposition is terminable at will. If it is terminable at will, it is not a lease, it's a license. In this case, if you read the document, it explicitly says it is not terminable at will. The fifth and sixth are whether or not the disposition is assignable or mortgageable. Again, that is not the case here. The 7th, 8th, and 9th all depend on whether or not there's default, whether or not there is condemnation or whether or not there's an obligation to maintain improvements. Again, all of those things are not present here. So going back to whether or not it's a definitive parcel and whether or not it's a fixed term. One, it's not a definite parcel because within the document, the city clearly proclaims its right to enter at any given time, appoint a specific representative from the city to approve any and all decisions made by CNHA, and the city reserves the right to place any of its own concessions in place, essentially proving that we do not have definitive exclusive use of the parcel. Now going to the fixed term, arguably, yes, that is one of the time period, the time period is set out in the document, which is a standard form for the city. However, if you go back to McCandless versus the John E. Estate case, which is the case in which the KPPS versus City and County of Honolulu Burger King case is based on, the reason they outlined fixed term and definite parcel as a definition of a lease was because it was about exclusivity. And that's why I said it's arguably not met here, because every other term that the city is put in their form indicates that there is no exclusivity held by CNHA over the parcel.
Thank you so much. I was just writing that down as we continue to speak with our lawyers, and we might not have everyone here. I wanted to make sure that I was able to address some of those questions. Mahalo. Aloha, Chair.
Thank you, members. Any other questions for the testifier? All right, seeing none, thank you. Up next, Rick Agid, Kuhio Lewis, Dr. Jamie Miller, Alethea Redman, and then Kumu Hina.
Good morning, trustees. I was going to say council members, also council members. My name is Rick Agid. I'm the president of the Waikiki Improvement Association, and we are in strong support of the city and CNHA's initiative here to bring regular performances of Hawaiian culture back to the Waikiki area, technically by city statute. This is not in Waikiki, but it certainly has a strong proximity. And WIA has actually worked with the city as a partner and done hula programs at Kuhio Beach, but this is so much more robust in terms of what we would be able to offer. And I think it really comes to one of the crux of the matter is that the being able to do this evening program, which is not currently in action but is planned, would enable this to be an ongoing effort and to provide that cultural connection on a regular basis. And we think that's really important. CNHA is a nonprofit. This is not a commercial operation to make money. The commercial piece of this would be only to provide the funding to be able to do the cultural piece. And so we think this is a tremendous project, and it really meets the whole idea of destination management, being able to bring that Hawaiian culture back into the Waikiki area. Thank you.
Members, any questions for the testifier? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much for being here, Mr. Agid, and thank you for your position on bringing back Hawaiian culture, dance, and the language into the area. Not really a question, but just a statement for your organization. I think that bringing it back to the shell is one thing, but we've had kind of on and off discussion about entertainment in Waikiki, street performers and such. And I think in general, the Waikiki area could stand to bring a lot of it back. I mean, I used to perform for Polynesian Culture Center on some of the streets, but I think after COVID, there's been a decrease of the amount of ability for hula shows to even perform throughout Waikiki. And so is that something that you think your organization is trying to pursue or could pursue to bring back?
Yes, we have produced the Kuhio Beach Hula Show, which at one point was 7 days a week. But lack of funding has gotten it down to where last year was 2 days a week. Right now, we're dark, because we're still trying to work out funding from the HTA and actually working through Kilohana to get some of the funding for that. And one of the nights would be Saturday night, which would be a dark night for the program at the Shell. And so yes, I agree with you. However, I think it does, although it probably is true that there's been a decline since COVID because a lot of performances were stopped at that point, there is still a lot of Hawaiian music performances going on in Waikiki. I know the Hilton Hawaiian Village alone, for example, spends $2 million a year on cultural performances on the Hilton Hawaiian Village property. And so, that's just one property. So is there enough? No. Yes, I agree with you. We should have more. But I think it's in error to say there's none. There is a lot of areas where cultural performances are taking place. The Royal Hawaiian Center, for example, has a very robust cultural program. And so can we do better? I agree with you. We need to do better, and we are constantly encouraging our members to do so. I also help with management for Aloha festivals. So we're trying to get more Aloha festivals events around Waikiki on properties, as well as the ones that everyone's aware of, the parade and the Ho'olaulea. So it's part of our mandate, Waikiki Improvement Association, to try to strengthen that cultural connection between Waikiki and the host culture. So any ideas you might have to do, where we can do more, let me know.
Well, definitely, run through the council member of the area, but we have a park right next to the Koi Hotel, and the owner asked me, if we could bring hula to the park right there. And so I'm glad to hear that you're open to it. Looking forward to working together with the council member of the area and anything we can do on the city side to help. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Up next is Kuhio Lewis, Dr. Jamie Miller, Alethea Redmond, and then Kumuhina.
Aloha trustees, thank you for the opportunity to be here and share. I'm the CEO for the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement. We represent 1,400 members across the state. We serve underserved communities through community development, economic development, cultural development. We employ kumuhula practitioners, and we are actually a prominent voice on preservation issues, weighing in across the state on a number of matters. Before you is I think it's important to explain why we brought this forward. CNHA has been moving aggressively to looking at ways in which we could have more regenerative models of tourism, in which our community can be more involved and contribute to being part of a solution to our challenges facing tourism. This hula show is part of that solution. It's a chance for us to give economic opportunities while enriching our place to our people. It's costing us around $130,000 a month or $6,000 a day to put on this hula show. We are proposing to have an evening show to offset that cost, which we don't even think would fully cover that cost. This is a public facility, and we believe that will uplift and honor the legacy in which that even exists, bringing cultural enrichment to a place where you could frequent for ragers or concerts. This is something that I feel is culturally appropriate for our people. I know I'm out of time, so maybe you can ask me a question.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Kiaina.
Yes, please continue.
Oh. Okay, so, in addition to the morning show, this evening show that's been highly talked about, we haven't fully finalized what we want to do. We're determining, what type of show it would be, but I can tell you it would be authentic. It would be something that our community is proud of. It's something that our visitors would embrace. It's a chance for us to tell our story. And I think it's a beautiful use of this place, named after our queen, Kapiolani, the wife of King Kalakaua. Our agreement with the city and county of Honolulu permits use for special events. And just to be clear, what we have here is not an exclusive arrangement. Some days we have, some months we have 15 days, other months we have 13 days. We're basically utilizing the shell on days that no one else utilizes it. In some days, those days that we requested aren't available because other groups are using it. So there is no exclusivity. We're not allowed to install anything permanent at the shell. We have to remove every morning. We're removing all of the kiosk and the various items that contribute to the morning show. So this is far from what would be a lease where you would have the ability to permanently improve the area. And there are details in our written testimony that we submitted that further clarifies why we believe this is permissible. I will say we went through an entire year of due diligence with our attorneys as well as with the city to determine whether this was something we would invest in. So we're here today after a lot of due diligence had occurred. We would not have put in the resources, the money, the time if we didn't feel it was allowable. I do want to also add that we did engage the Preservation Society before making any announcement. We were proactive. We were upright in sharing with them our intent to have an evening show. They compared us to Burger King and said, it was like a lipstick on pig. We believe otherwise, and we hope the trustees will agree with that.
Okay, members, any questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. Quick question, since, obviously it being an economic driver, and you said basically it is about bringing the culture back, but also, employment. How many people are you employing to get this accomplished, and of what ages?
So the morning show employs 30 cast members. Some of them are here today. We have kupuna that come from across the island. Many of them, and some of them actually performed in the original Kodak Hula show. And there is anywhere from 25 to 30 full members that are part of the cast of Kilohana, including the director and Kumu Hula, who happen to be also the winners of last year's Merry Monarch Hula competition.
Yeah, I find it interesting because it's actually hard to have a job actually doing hula or even just doing cultural practices and sustain your family. And so for that amount of people, but also the duration of time, I would say that it's impressive, and I thank you for providing that opportunity, especially in a place like Waikiki. I said I dance for PCC, but there's very few spots, Tihatis, maybe Germains, maybe, very few spots for people to actually still dance and embrace the culture and make money for their families. So thank you for that, and I'll look forward, read through your testimony on the further remarks.
Mahalo.
Mahalo, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to, before we move on to the next testifier, I do want to make an announcement that it appears that we're going to be going a little bit longer based on sort of the testimony as well as likely questions. And so for the Budget Committee, with the concurrence of the Budget Chair, budget's going to be going after EMLA. So hopefully we can keep EMLA short, although that agenda also has a number of items. So with that announcement being made, we'll move on now to Dr. Jamie Miller, Alethea Redmond, Kumuhina, Oriana Lulu, and then Leilani Vakauta.
Aloha mai council. Mahalo for having us here. My name is Jamie Mahelani Miller. I'm the COO of Hawaii Entertainment Productions, the entity partnering with CNHA on the creativity of the shows. I'm from Honolulu. I'm a hula practitioner, and I also come from a family of entertainers that have performed in Waikiki for decades. I just really wanted to share that when my hula family came to the show, they provided feedback that they were in complete support for the show and that it was really a depiction of our hula culture and that they were very proud of what was happening and that instilled that proudness instills generations to come. So we're not only talking about today, but we're talking about many generations ahead of us as we try and restore our culture. Each show that I've attended, the audiences, both local and tourists and visitors, have made positive comments. We have recurring people that come often that are not only one-timers, but several. One more point I wanted to make about the economy, if that's okay, is that we not only are providing employment for musicians and practitioners, but we are also regenerating our economy in front of the house, back of the house. We use local vendors. We also are using the city contractors and also city vendors. And so this is truly a regenerative model in not just economy, but in society and in social entrepreneurship. So mahalo. Is there any questions?
Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none. Alethea Redmond from the Kapiolani Park Preservation Society.
Good afternoon, trustees. Alethea Redmond, Board President of the Kapiolani Park Preservation Society. And I'd like to give you a little more of a nuanced view of us and our goals here than what maybe has been presented so far. First, as to the Kilohana Hula Show, to the extent it's a recreation of the beloved and historic Kodak Hula Show, we're in support. That's not an issue here. What is an issue is that the court rulings be followed, that there not be commercial use attached to the Kilohana Hula Show in any way. The court order is that the Kodak Hula Show was permitted as it stood at the time as long as it didn't charge entrance. It couldn't have a marketplace, and in fact, they had shut down their attached stands of film and that kind of thing. So there's that. And then there is the evening luau, which Department of Enterprise Service didn't really address, so I'm not sure how appropriate it is to bring that to you here. If you have any questions for me on that, my time's up, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions for the testifier? Councilmember Tupola.
Aloha, thank you for being here. So I'm reading testimony right now, and you did quote the court order saying that the Waikiki Shell is a facility appropriate to a park and its use for short-term entertainment events of the type currently being conducted is not a violation of the trust. So we currently do rent out the Shell for things like major rage or all kinds of things, concerts. In your opinion, how do you see this being different?
There's a would a rose by any other name smell as sweet? It doesn't matter if you call it a license. If you rented it to, say, Macy's, to set up shop in there, if you rented it to Monaheli'i, anything, it doesn't matter what you rent it to. You are renting it for those given days. The people are going to advertise that service. In the case of a luau, they're going to take reservations at $200 a person or whatever their final price is. They're establishing a business on park land. And I believe it was Corp Council who said public park purpose. So we can think of it.
I guess what you're saying is the repetition of it, because technically everyone who uses it does advertise. And they do also invite people, and there are thousands of people that go. So you're saying the repetition is what you're disputing?
It's the repetition. Yes, I suppose so. It's the repeated use. It's setting it up. If I sublet my office Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's not a special event, right?
Dan, I just think that, you know, what we'll discuss with our lawyers is small discrepancies between words like leases and licenses, words like permanent exclusive and non-exclusive. And to be honest, even if we did lease it multiple times to the same person, the definition that you're giving me of what a special event is also your definition. We'd have to see legally what that definition is. And I think lastly is the facilities we have in the city, to be honest, we want them to be used. You know, we need them to be used. The more that they're used, the better it is for the benefit to people using our city facilities. And our new director has tried to like really make that more accessible to the public, where in the past, people have skipped over us, gone and used the convention center, other places that are easy to do business with. So we're in between here because we want to see all of this used for the public. And I appreciate your thoughts, and I'll continue reading your testimony, ask further questions to our legal team.
And if I may, that parsing of the words is what brought the city to the Hawaii Supreme Court in 1988. It was their desire to say, we're weaving among the words. So we look at it, is it a rose? Does it smell like a rose? Does it look like a lease?
Understood.
Okay. And as far as wanting to see the facility used, that's completely understandable. That's a public park purpose. But as you sit here as trustees, your fiduciary duty is not the prudent investor. Your fiduciary duty is to the park purpose, which is free and open to the public. So the question might be, does this facilitate free and open access to set up a dinner show within? It doesn't matter, as one of our board members says, it's not likability, it's legality. And we are here as an organization that has no other purpose than to try to preserve the park. And you mentioned Convention Center, Mr. Pola. At one point, the state wanted to put the Convention Center in Kapiolani Park. It's that adherence to the letter of the trust that has kept it free and open to the public.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I thank you for the clarifying remarks. I guess still in my head is we have usage or vacancy. You know, when things sit vacant and then all of a sudden we just have other issues, whether it's criminality or something happening to the facility, I choose usage. I choose let's get people out there. But I hear what you're saying, and we will clarify things with our legal team. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and thank you, everybody. I'm happy to answer any other questions on behalf of Kapiolani Park Preservation Society.
I think we do have more questions from Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you very much. I have noted in here, in your testimony, about the proposed commercial luau as well as marketplace. Are you likening CNHA as a business? Do you view them as a business?
Are they operating a business, I guess would be the question. the Kodak Hula Show is free and open to the public. And one thing is that I understood from various news outlets that Southwest Airlines is going to sponsor the Kilohana Hula Show, which should lessen the need for funds to support it. But no, I'm not here to compare CNHA to anybody. I'm just saying, what is this particular contract going to do, no matter who it is?
And because they are not a business, they are a nonprofit organization, allowing for free shows. In your testimony, it mentions that concerts and the commercial luau and marketplace are not equivalent. And so I was wondering, how are they not equivalent when you have to pay to go to those concerts?
Right, I know that's a difficult concept, but it comes down again to special events, basically, versus a long-term usage by anybody.
Okay, and as for concerts, we see those types of events as profitable. As for the free shows that are occurring, like Kilohana, do you see that as profitable? Free shows as profitable?
I'm not quite sure what you mean. I'm sorry.
So, because once again, you were making them not equivalent, but I also don't see them as equivalent, and I guess highlighting concerts being okay versus, I guess, the long-term use by CNHA to not being okay, and while concerts are profiting off of Waikiki Shell.
So this isn't about CNHA, and the two things are separate. A luau in the shell that has a rental agreement for so many nights a week for 10 months where the city has obligations and so on is different than the Kodak, or now Kilohana Hula Show.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, when we are comparing these things as well, that, you're stating legality as an issue, but we also have to look at also wholly, like what concerts or shorter term uses of the venue in comparison to also the long-term use of the venue as well. So I understand where you're coming from, and I also just wanted to ask you that questions for clarity from the Preservation Society.
So a long-term use is not necessarily a park purpose, and it's not a special event. They're just two different things. So if any organization wanted to put on 2 nights in the shell, that's a special event, right? If you want to block off 4 nights a week for the shell and say, well, we have to do it so the city makes money, which is a consideration for you as city council members, but I don't think it's a consideration for you as trustees. So it's a pretty nuanced thing, but it's definitely not equivalent. For instance, the zoo is on parkland, but it was specifically allowed as a public park purpose. Like, is this something you would usually do in a park? Go to the zoo, go to a concert? Sure it is. But you'll notice there's a lot of other restrictions around everything to keep it affordable. So parking is allowed as in the park and including in the zoo parking lot, either inexpensive or free and marked for park users only. So everything is aimed at keeping it as open as possible to as many people as possible. So if somebody wanted to come in and do a concert on a Sunday night and they couldn't, then you'd say, okay, what are we swapping it out for? But the main thing is public park purpose and not allowing exclusive use to any one business. And that's the difference between special events and for instance, the art on the fence, which disappears, or craft fairs, which get a permit, but they're an allowable park purpose. So, like I said, it can be a little complicated.
Okay, and I know that we're talking about concerts and use of one specific venue, but there's also long-term uses at the Kapiolani Park as well, right? And whether they be leagues, and leagues charge as well, whether it be soccer leagues or other types of sports leagues that, we can argue are having a park purpose, but also charge at the same time too. So how would we also compare that for those long-term uses as well?
So thinking of sports teams, there's been a real effort at Kapiolani Park, and we've helped with it, and the city parks department has been very good about it to make sure that the fields can always be reconfigured for other people to use. So there are no permanent backstops for any one sport. And I use the example, which I've used recently, but the city came to us and asked us to work with the cricket people to figure out how they could put in a cricket pitch that wouldn't interfere with other sports that want to come in on the weekend or whenever it is. And we worked with them and we were able to do that. So anybody should be able to use it. If you're ASO and you're putting on a tournament, you apply for a permit, you use it for a couple days, you hopefully treat it well and get your deposit back, and then the rugby people can use it the next week. So there's been a real effort at the park, including by Department of Parks and Rec, to make sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Keano.
Thank you. My first question is, do you respect Hawaiian culture and history?
Of course. And I don't, if I may, with all due respect, I don't think that's the question here. It's not whether we respect culture on a broader sense, because we shouldn't live here if we don't. But it's a question of what can be done with this park land to preserve it for the public forever.
Park land that was given from King Kalakaua for the benefit of all people was taken by the Republic of Hawaii and given to the federal government with all lands. And then we stand here today throwing legalese at events that allow our culture to thrive. With regard to Kapiolani Park Preservation Society, are there any Native Hawaiian members who are part of this society?
Yes.
Who are they? Are they here?
I don't feel free to say people's names here, but certainly we'd be happy to meet with you. No, today it's just me and board member Patrick Henry.
I have to tell you, I just question your motivation because you clearly know what you're doing by throwing legalese language out here. You're actually questioning Corporation Counsel and the Department of Enterprise Services to do this. And I guess in my mind, quite frankly, I'm just wondering, what are you doing this for? So I do question your motivation. My last question is, do you
May
believe—
I answer? We are here for every single issue that comes up. It's not a question of motivation against one person, one thing, anything else. We were formed over 40 years ago to keep the park free and open to the public. And a little history, at the time, the trust had been lost. And that's when the city wanted to put a nightclub and a restaurant in. And this trust was revived at the time. So we're honoring history by doing this, and it's our only purpose.
I'm sorry. No more questions. I'm just very saddened by what you are doing. And I'll just end by just saying this is just history repeating itself. And I'm just disappointed because you have no aloha.
Members, any other questions? Councilmember Wire.
Mahalo, Chair, and thank you to everyone that testified today. I was just curious, so how is this different than maybe like sports leagues that have a continuous use, right? Like a kickball league or a softball league, or, you know, as they rotate in and out of the space?
Right. It would be an issue if they did have set days that were set aside for themselves. Right now, anybody can apply for certain days for permits, and it should be first come, first served. You can apply far ahead of time, of course, so that you can plan your tournament or whatever, but we would have the same issue if Parks Department was giving people exclusive use of part of the park for set periods of time.
Okay, so you're saying it really comes down to the exclusive use being problematic?
Yes.
Okay, so if it's determined that the license doesn't satisfy that exclusivity, then it's resolved, the issues are resolved?
As far as exclusive use, there are other issues. But generally, if it doesn't meet any of the criteria of what I'll call exclusive use, meaning some of the factors that were set forth by the Supreme Court regarding a lease, then it might be okay. It would depend on the facts of each case.
What about, and then just last question, as we're coming out of COVID, when the symphony was trying to utilize more outdoor spaces, right, to allow for the spacing, and was implementing a schedule and a continued, just events for the community, how is that different?
I don't know the facts of that, how often they had it, how long it went on, if they had exclusive use for 9 months, 4 nights a week, I don't know.
Okay, but being Preservation Society, you remember those events, I'm sure, like when the symphony was scheduling their outdoor shows. Or, I'm assuming you're tracking all the issues that are going on in the trust.
We try, but sometimes we don't know in time.
Okay, so this one in particular, what made this one rise to the top for you, if we're talking about just organizations that make frequent use of the park?
This is an especially large issue. There are a number of small issues, like Chair Waters asked earlier about commercial uses in the park. That has been an ongoing issue, and we've asked the city repeatedly to enforce their laws and so on, but there are a number of things that make it difficult for them, and we understand that, but we continue to ask them to do it. But if somebody were given a lease by the city for that land, then that's something we would have to act on, and that would be an issue that came to the forefront.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Chair Waters, and then Councilmember Tolba.
Thank you. By the way, thank you for having this hearing. I think by putting this number 2 on the agenda, we're actually satisfying number 1 during the triennial report, that we're allowing people to voice their concerns on the uses of the park. But you said something really interesting to me. You said allowable park purpose, like the zoo is an allowable park purpose. Who defines, as far as you can tell, what an allowable park purpose is? Is that the trustees? Or, honestly, I don't know.
That's a hard one. We know that the zoo is an allowable park purpose because it's already in the law. There's not a lot of law anywhere about public charitable trusts because they're pretty rare. So our 1988 case here was a seminal case in many ways. So allowable park purposes would probably be a mixed question of fact and law, meaning the facts would have to be gathered and then we'd see if the law applied. So are picnics a public park purpose? I think we could all agree yes. But then we would look at a zoo, and the Hawaii court found that a zoo was an allowable park purpose. And whether everyone agreed, I don't know. So I think there's a lot of room there as we define allowable park purpose.
So when you said the zoo is in the law, you mean case law or in statute?
Case law.
Okay, so basically a judge decided that the zoo was an allowable park purpose. But interestingly, what you pointed out just now, though, is that the judge did not define allowable park purpose. And of course, sorry, I am an attorney, so I pick at little words like this, but they made a case-by-case basis, right, saying the zoo is an allowable park purpose.
I think after a broad survey of the law, they did that, and they did it to effectuate the 1988 Supreme Court ruling, to put it into effect, to apply the facts before the court to that ruling. And nobody appealed that ruling.
Okay, but again, the zoo is charging money for it, right?
That's right.
Yes, and it's an exclusive agreement for 365 days a year, right?
I think it's a city department that's operating from there to operate a zoo for the public. The prices are always reasonable. The parking is kept reasonable. There's access for everybody. I know the zoo makes an effort to host special events. There's keiki events, that kind of thing. And frankly, it was already in place in 1988. So I think that probably helped.
Just following up on what Councilmember Cordero is talking about, there you make a distinction between long-term use and special events. So, you know, my child used to play soccer, and the soccer club was a private club that had exclusive use of the field during certain days of the week for a season. How is that distinguishable from what CNHA is doing?
There should have been a fair permit application process so that anybody could reserve those for any day of the week. If there wasn't, presumably somebody would have complained. But it's not necessarily whether somebody's a private group or a nonprofit. Of course, we see it all the time in Kapiolani Park. Churches make reservations for the grassy areas and picnic areas, and they have a church service even, or a post-church picnic out there, and they're a nonprofit. At the same time, as Councilmember Cordero pointed out, there are concerts. There's for-profit events in the park. So it's not a blanket profit, for-profit, nonprofit, anything like that.
Park space is actually very competitive, where Parks Department has to decide, you know, between one club versus another club. So I don't see how you distinguish that from what CNHA is doing.
Well, there's a couple things. The city hasn't entered into, as far as I know, any agreements that a soccer club can have exclusive use for so many days a week or whatever it is for a certain 9-month period or whatever it is. So the difference would be also fair competition. I don't know what process, if any, the city followed in awarding this contract. Was it put out to bid? Did they solicit bids from other people? Did they work only with one group? So another major difference would be the opportunity of various groups to come forward and apply for whatever it is.
I guess my concern is because I want to keep the kids on the soccer field and the softball players on the soccer field, but I think they do have an agreement with the city. Again, I'm guessing here, but I think they do have an agreement because they're able to reserve it for themselves. And ultimately, if we take such a rigid stand, I'd hate for us to have to say that the soccer kids couldn't play.
Chair
Yeah.
Waters, I think if there were an exclusive agreement, ASO gets it for this many days a week for the entire season, and they get it again next year, we would have a problem with that. It should be a fair process where any soccer team can come in, or cricket team, or whatever it is, because the park is for everyone's use.
I guess that's my concern because we want the kids to be able to play, and we want Hawaiian music to be able to play there too.
Sure.
But okay, well, I guess maybe we can ask our lawyers, does the city, do we as trustees get to define what allowable park purpose is? Yeah, and then let the court say that we can or can't do it. Just a thought.
Although, if I may,
Yeah, please.
I think the process would be when there's a question, a controversy, there's a process already established for resolving that.
What process is that?
I think you would first certify it to the AG if you know there's a controversy, and the AG would weigh on it. And then if there's still an issue, it would go to the probate court.
Okay, but if we believe that we can define allowable park purpose, we wouldn't, as trustees, take that to the AGs, correct? We have our own lawyers, Corporation Counsel.
No, that's correct.
So who would take it to the AGs? Presumably you, right?
I think you would certify it to the AG.
So we have to check with the AGs if we make a decision regarding the park?
I would suggest you ask your lawyers and the AG that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Tolba.
Thank you. Just going on, and thank you for being here. Tough position you're in, huh? But I like to know, what is the fear of having or allowing culture to be on a park land? What is the fear?
Well,
this is Hawaii. You fear that there's going to be another ethnicity group come in and do the same thing? Or why? Help me understand your fear of something that's very Hawaii, that's teaching, that's allowing people to participate. What's the fear? Besides the legal stuff, because everybody watching at home, a simple-minded people, common sense. Make it easy and simple. Explain to me, what is the fear of not allowing something that's very cultural?
So let me stress again, we're not against culture, we're not against hula. The Kilohana Hula Show, fantastic. Do it. The fear is we do not rent out land and facilities within the park to any one business. And I used your word fear, but that may not be quite the right word. The concern is that the reason Kapiolani Park is still free and open to the public is that trust that puts restrictions. We don't always like the restrictions. I understand as a city council, you have other hats to wear in terms of promoting culture, in terms of promoting tourism. You have other hats to wear. But that trust has kept this park free and open to the public. It has kept it from proliferating with signage, because the only information kiosk signage allowed was information about Kapiolani Park. It has kept the parking free and open, including for surfers who use it, who use the park, to families who use the park. There are a lot of benefits to keeping this free and open to the public. So fear, I mean, like I said, I'll use that word, but the point is nobody gets exclusive use of the park.
So I guess, Council Chair Waters, we have to look into the word allowable, because I don't see any harm with allowing a very cultural thing that's teaching and preserving what is good for Hawaii.
And to be clear, again, the Kilohana Hula Show is not the issue here. As long as it's operated as the Kodak Hula Show basically was, and there's no, pop-up marketplace or whatever attached to it, that is fantastic. It is running a commercial evening luau under a rental agreement with the city, which has a responsibility to follow the trust. That's an issue.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any members who haven't asked questions thus far? Any questions? Okay. We're going to go into a second round, but I have a question first.
Yes.
I think the challenge is we'd like to understand if there's a bright line here. And I think clearly one concert at the Shell, there's no problem. Perhaps if the Green comes in on a Friday and a Saturday and does a Friday-Saturday concert, there's not really a problem here. But, I see that there's a number of other artists. Let's suppose a symphony orchestra wants to perform all 50 of Mozart's symphonies over the course of a year. Is that, I guess I'm trying to understand kind of where that bright line is. I can see if it's every single night, but if it's one night a week, is that equally problematic? Or perhaps maybe there is no bright line and maybe it is a judgment call. I just kind of want to elucidate that a little bit more.
I think you're right, and there is no bright line. It's going to be a judgment call. Certain things, however, fall on the other side of the line. And a rental agreement for 4 nights a week for 9 months does fall on the other side of the line.
Okay, thank you. So second round, we have Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. I just have 2 follow-up questions. I know that you mentioned relating to permanent structures, and I likened it to the soccer leagues who don't really have any backstops for specific sports, correct? And CNHA mentioned in their testimony that they also do not place any permanent structures at the shell. And because of that, I just wanted to note, first off, that you know that, and two, if you have any response, because you did note that as part of the comparison that between the sports as well as the long-term use for the Kilohana show.
Okay. So one of the aspects of not putting up permanent backstops or goals or whatever it is to keep that ability to use that same space for various groups. So if, say, all sports used one goal, like the Shell, all concerts use one facility, then that would be different. As far as what they plan to do, I don't know. We've reviewed the rental agreement, and it does allow for the lessee to make changes that are properly approved by the permitting department. So that would be another matter for the trustees to take up, but it's not determinative in what we're doing here. I mean, what we as KPPS are doing.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to reiterate and bring up, because we did talk about such structures, and then bring up the testimony that they said that they were not going to, and that they do not. And so my next point, I guess, or also comment and question would be relating to the concerns about the long-term use and the amount of days that is utilized for the show. And they also stated in the testimony that they don't have shows when the Waikiki Shell is already booked. Or if it is set to be booked. So is there any concern with that, with their flexibility to allow the Waikiki Shell to be used, and they're not coupling that time only, and that time only, they're allowing for other events to occur. Is there any other types of concerns other than that?
As far as the facts of their usage, I don't think we know yet because it's not in place. But if they're going to advertise for those nights, I would think that the city should let them use those nights, and therefore they do get those nights. Anybody who takes those nights and says, well, you can come in whenever you like, what does that really mean? Does that mean I have to cancel all of my bookings 4 hours before because the city says they want to come in? Probably not. But we just don't know that kind of thing yet, and it doesn't flesh it out in the rental agreement.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other members, second round? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I guess just some follow-ups, and I know that Councilmember Cordero iterated some of them, but they already stated they're not putting anything permanent. And actually, at different concerts, people are allowed to sell merchandise. They can sell food. There's various things that can happen within the shell that actually would maybe constitute what you're saying is a marketplace. So as far as I'm concerned, every event has some flexibility in the shell to do some type of form of sales, whether it's the ticket sales or, T-shirts or whatnot. But secondly, I think when you're talking about what you just said, the hours of displacement, in Revised Ordinances of Honolulu, Chapter 38, the Department of Enterprise Services has a clear agreement that actually they can displace anybody if there's somebody that offers a better price to them for the rental of the facility. There is a time frame on here, actually, but with that being said, it basically means that the Revised Ordinances of Honolulu provide that nobody gets exclusivity, meaning that it always has to be for the benefit of whatever the venue is. But it does say in here that if they do get displaced, that we can offer them a different place at a city facility like the Blaisdell or somewhere else if you're not allowed to be there, if there's a better contract that comes through. And I'll ask the director some of these questions. But I do feel that most of what you brought up as far as exclusivity, which they don't have, permanent structures, which they don't do, only for a certain group, which is not happening because it's free and open to the public. So I do believe that actually the revised ordinances give us that ability. And as further brought up by everyone who brought up soccer players, people say that all the time about the parks. Oh, look, they have an exclusive permit and that's why their team always gets this court. That's actually not the case. there are people that get things repetitively, but they have to continue to bid, they have to continue to fill out applications. So I'll ask the director some of those follow-up questions, but I will say that I think some of the fears that you conveyed are actually not happening. But again, you want specificity in the agreement. I do believe that all of that can be hashed out. And I do think that we're actually following exactly what the ROH says and as well what the court documents have said. But we do thank you for your thoughts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other second round questions? Okay. Oh, Alethea,
May
you're
I
off the
have
hook.
a moment after all of that to say that we are
Briefly.
not here, thank you, we're not here as a negative group, and we are being so cast as a negative group, but we are a variety of citizens who are here trying to keep Kapiolani Park free and open to the public, no matter what it is, and that is our only mission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next, we have Kumuhina, Oriana Lulu, Leilani Vakauta, and then Ariana Nonis Ramos.
Aloha mai kākou, trustees. Mahalo anui ko kākou hui ana. I did originally sign up to testify under my official capacity as cultural ambassador for the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement. However, I kindly request that you simply look at me as Hinalei Moana today. And I'm going to utilize the term that I heard earlier about judgment. And in this case, I'd like to advocate for all of you trustees to continue on in the judgment that I am receiving and absorbing as I listen to the engage, as I listen to the questioning that you are posing today regarding this agenda item number 2. Judgment requires matter of perspective, and the lens with which I've heard all of you question, I believe, are in alignment with what is healthy and right and just for Kanaka in the community. With your permission, may I finish this sentiment? Yes. So judgment, the lens with which you do what you do is extremely critical to making the decisions, whether it's here in this forum as trustees for the park or whether it's in your capacity as council members. It is the same judgment that I must use when I wear things that could be viewed as decorational or ornamental. When I use this, I invoke this as a sign of my aumakua that I come from a shark family. I pledge not to utilize this in a form of a weapon to stab anybody, of which it could do. I pledge to not utilize this as a means to slash anybody because they're teeth. And I use this as simply a way to convey that as someone who descends from a shark family, when I have to wear my badge as cultural ambassador, that I'm required to be like the Mano. Mano, people don't understand sharks. People think that sharks are vicious and violent. They simply are who they are in their domain. One of the main things about sharks in Hawaii is that we're guardians. And so as someone who's been entrusted by someone who is a leader in my eyes, Kuhio Lewis, to be an ambassador and a guardian for things on the cultural level, I encourage you all to allow the ethical and moral compass that you have all shown in today's proceedings to guide you into the decision-making that will bring that which is just, fair, and equitable for all the public, especially with regards to Kanaka, whom endeavor to uplift and empower the place of my people in our community. So mahalo anui for your time. Mahalo anui for all of the sentiments that you have all shared. I trust in your leadership and your wise judgment today. Mahalo anui.
Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none. We have Oriana Lulu, Leilani Vakauta, Ariana Nonis Ramos.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Oriana Lulu. And so my husband and I are both hula dancers at the Kilohana Morning Show. I grew up as a kumuhula's daughter, and my family has had a 30-year entertainment business that my husband and I had recently just taken over. And so my entire life, I've watched other businesses, companies, people, excuse me for my language, prostitute our culture and other cultures in so many ways. And so I'm here to support CNHA because I haven't seen any other show that preserves, protects, and perpetuates our culture the way that Kilohana does through Kumu Tracy and Calvi Lopez. And this also allows my husband and I to provide for our family, which I'm super grateful for, especially as a mother of two. Creating a legacy, we get to create that legacy of what once was. We can create this space and environment that our children can grow up in as well. That we get to also play into the vision of what not only CNH has, CNHA has, but also what Kilohana stands for, which is excellence and wisdom refined over generations. And so I'm here just so that we can go ahead and perpetuate and continue this legacy for our children as well. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any questions? Okay. Seeing none, we have Leilani Wakauta, Ariana Nonis Ramos, John Kanching, and then Napua Abad Kama.
Mahalo. I'm Leilani Vakauta. I bring you the love of the musicians from Kilohana show. But I am a five-generation descendant of Hawaiian musicians from Joseph Kekuku line all the way down. I've gone around the world to promote tourism here in Hawaii. And, CNHA has afforded us all the kupuna. There's kupuna, there are 78 that sing along with me. And, to see them come every day and give up their love of music from Kodak Hula Show, it's almost like never done, I think, in the world. To see Tutu next to me, Tutu there, and me. So I would, from the bottom of my heart, like to ask the sister that we would probably love to work with you, but she would work with all of us. I think that would be the great grandstand of aloha right there for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay. Seeing none. And again, Ariana Nonis Ramos, John Kanching, and then Napua Abad Kama.
My name is Ariana Nonis Ramos. I reside in Mililani. I have been dancing my entire life. I've been in the entertainment industry for about 10 years with a background with Brown Bags to Stardom, Mililani Town Center show. I've traveled internationally and nationally to share my hula. I love to hula. I also dance at many other shows in Waikiki. And Kilohana, dancing at the Waikiki Shell, has been one of my favorite places to dance at and work at. We get to share our day with the kupuna, which is my favorite time of the day. We have this legacy of dancers that come from all ages. We just love to share what we love to do. And I've actually had a visitor today who lives in the mainland and is actually planning to move here for hula, sharing the love of hula. And her name is Maddie. She's like 10 years old. And, she's come to the show very often. She's come to my other shows at Ala Moana. And, we share that light. And what motivates her to come here is because she can feel what we feel. We love to share what we love to do. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Members, any questions? All right. The last two on the list before me, we have John Kanching and Napua Abad Kama.
Aloha. I'm here in place of John Kanching, if I may. He had to go pick up his
If you could identify yourself.
Yes, my name's John Foy. Thank you. All right. And I am a partner with John in a company called Pilina Marketing. And we're a marketing and sales consultant for various facets of our visitor industry and related organizations. And I'll read what John has to say. He's in full support of not just the KHS at the Waikiki Shell, but in full transparency, he's a paid consultant, and we've chosen to lend our expertise and talents to this group because we strongly believe in the overall benefits of the destination's goal for a more regenerative model for the visitor industry and the overall benefits of a stronger and more focused effort for destination management for our residents and visitors. These are complex goals with no easy answer. However, the KHS, in its own small way, is aligned with these goals by creating a bridge, so to speak, where residents and visitors can interact with each other and learn and enjoy our Hawaiian culture. If I may continue.
Please, yes, summarize.
Okay. Sure. In summary, I guess I'll say that we do believe that CNHA is appreciating and celebrating our culture and demonstrating, how we can take this new path that the visitor industry is going on and presenting it to the public, and bringing together not only our kama'aina, but also our visitors. I've been to the show a number of times. I know that it's a quality show, and I'm sure that what they're going to present with the dinner show will be exactly the same. It'll be something of high quality for both the kama'aina and our visitors to appreciate. So appreciate your consideration. Aloha.
Thank you. Up next, Napua Abad Kama. And then if there's anyone else here in the chamber who'd like to testify who hasn't, you can line up on the side there.
Hello. Aloha, my name is Napua Abad Kama. I'm from Kahului, Maui, but I currently live in Kapahulu. I stand with CNHA, and I just wanted to come here and let you guys know that I am standing with them. And yeah, I'm just super grateful for the opportunity to just share my culture, and I'm looking forward and hoping that we can continue to do this for a long time. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay. Is there anyone else in the chamber who'd like to testify? Okay. I see we have Angela Melody Young, who we called earlier, but is now online. So Angela, if you'd like to proceed, you got 1 minute. Thank you.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young. I'm testifying on behalf of CARES, and I'm concerned about the concerts at the Kapiolani Park and the appropriate uses of the park. So I don't believe the council members who are designated trustees of the Kapiolani Park would ever intentionally lease a charitable trust to a negative event. So sometimes there's so much going on, there just needs to be more research on appropriate uses of the park. So Kapiolani Park is a charitable trust, and the Parents Patri is the Attorney General, the AG. So the Parents Patri Attorney General is the Parents Patri of all charitable trusts in Hawaii. And Parents Patri means that the Attorney General has common law authority to provide charitable oversight in his or her capacity to all the charitable trusts in Hawaii. And the 9 council members are the trustees, and the people and the Native Hawaiians are the beneficiaries. This is the structure of the trust. So if the lease is more like a license and not a lease, when you're disposing portions of the park within a lease or a license, that is distinguished in the business classification of a license versus a lease. And a lease is not a breach of trust. And so, I really advocate on behalf of the Hawaiian,
Good wrap up.
Culture, and on behalf of good uses and appropriate uses of the park. And the 9 council members are the trustees of the park. So, yeah.
Members, any questions for Angela Melody Young? Okay, seeing none, thank you. All right, clerks, one last check. Is there anyone remotely standing by?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, at this time, since we've exhausted testimony, we've had the presentation, why don't we move into discussion? Is there any discussion that doesn't involve questions for our Corporation Counsel? Councilmember Tupola?
So if it's a question for enterprise services, wait.
I think, well, we can have enterprise services. Why don't we go to questions for enterprise services in that case?
Aloha, Director. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. So quick question, especially seeing as though we've had multiple conversations about the shell, is it being used? So as far as this contract is concerned, and I did read the law earlier, is this exclusive in your opinion, or are you guys authorized per the law actually to displace their events when there are other money-making ventures for the city? Could you clarify?
Yes, thank you. Great question. I do believe that the city does have the right, according to ROH 38.7.5, to displace if there is another opportunity for another event. So that also negates the exclusivity. The other thing I wanted to really stress is that at the Tom Off at Waikiki Shell, we can rent out to others while the Kilohana Free Show is going on. So an example would be, let's see, the next night would be a green concert. We could have a non-performance rental where they would be moving into the Waikiki Shell main stage while the front of the Tom Off at Waikiki Shell is being utilized by the free show. So it is not exclusive, and on many occasions there are could be even 2 or 3 different things that are happening at the same time in a rental agreement.
And last question, in regards to, I guess, their repetition, so using it multiple times, do they come in and apply over and over? And how do you guys do that? Or is it where they kind of make the application and, like you said, if other things come, then you just notify them? How does that work?
So they would sign a rental agreement through us, and then, of course, reviewed by CORE, and then it would be up to the director's discretion and, of course, Enterprise Services, whether or not we would move things around a little bit, which we have already done with them.
In other cases, have you repetitiously rented out to other vendors or shows where they've come multiple times?
Well, I mean, that would be a definition where you could say there would be various, let's say BAMP, BAMP events, that is under their company, but they might rent the shell, the Tom Off at Waikiki Shell, maybe 10 times a year. Is it congruently in sequence? Some of the days are, and it depends on, it takes 2 days to set up, 1 day to do sound check in the show, and another day to outload. So that would be 4 days in a row. But it would be defined as non-performance, performance, et cetera. So yes, to really answer your question, we have done multiple days for one particular special event.
Thank you so much for the clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Vice Chair Kiana.
Thank you. I just want to clarify. So what is the mechanism again? Is it a permit, revocable permit? What is the mechanism that you have with CNHA?
So we, just like everybody else that comes through to rent our facilities, it is a rental agreement. It is a contract that we have, that's a template that we use depending on what the elements they're requiring, how many days, how many people, what kind of event it is, sound equipment, et cetera, et cetera. And then it goes through CORE to be approved, and then we execute the contract.
Okay, so a rental agreement, and you have vetted it with the city's corporation council, correct?
That is correct.
And you are unable to do so without their approval.
That is correct.
Which basically their role is legal validity of the document. I understand the symphony takes up a lot of days. Under what authority do you give the symphony timeframes there?
So it's just, I heard the statement first come, first serve used earlier in our discussion, and that would be the same thing. So when the symphony had already booked out 2 weeks in June and 2 weeks in July, they were first come, first serve, and they rented it out in congruence as well.
Do they have a rental agreement as well?
They do have a rental agreement as well.
And do they sell tickets for the symphony?
They do sell tickets, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is CNHA doing any more days than the symphony?
They are doing more days because they the symphony has a season, so they do have more days than the symphony, yes.
Okay, but whether it be CNHA, symphony, or any other organization, private or nonprofit, you do not discriminate, correct?
That is correct. Anybody that would like to present a proposal, we are more than welcome to do so.
Okay, and then I just want to make sure, when CNHA asks for a series of days, or the symphony for that matter, if it is unavailable, you will tell them you cannot fulfill their request. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have a calendar, a master calendar, that actually can also be viewed on our website of what's been booked and what has not been reserved through the rental agreements.
Okay, if you don't mind, I just wanted to make a statement, Chair. First of all, thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for the community being here today. As a Native Hawaiian, I take my obligations as a trustee for Kapiolani Park very seriously. It's a special place. King Kalakaua and other ali'i, as well as Kama'aina, have historically used Waikiki for recreation and respite from the stresses of daily life, very much why many visitors visit Waikiki today. My ancestors, both the Heleluhe and Kia Aina Ohana, who lived on Ohua Lane, now Ohua Avenue, served Queen Liliuokalani, the last reigning monarch of the kingdom that Sanford Bido helped to overthrow in 1893. And they lived and spent a lot of time and cherished Waikiki. Unfortunately, a lot of Native Hawaiians, including myself, and other local families have felt disconnected from Waikiki in recent times, which is why I am particularly excited by the leadership of young Native Hawaiians with our kupuna to bring back a strong Hawaiian and local presence to this special place. So mahalo to your department, the mayor, and the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement for their creation of the Kilohana Hula Show and for their efforts to provide an opportunity to once again play an important role in hosting our visitors in a responsible, legal, and culturally grounded way while continuing to ensure that Waikiki is a place that all of the people of Hawaii can enjoy. Thank you so much.
Mahalo.
Members, any other questions for Enterprise Services? Okay, hearing none. Members, is there any discussion that doesn't involve legal questions that need to be answered in executive session? Okay, seeing none, that being the case, members, as an anticipation was noted on the agenda, we'll be going to executive session to consult with attorneys relating to the Kilohana Hula Show. Before we do that, I also want to announce that we're now eating into the EMLA time, which is fine. Speaking of eating, none of us have had lunch yet. So I'm going to propose that we begin EMLA no earlier than 2 p.m. So if we get out of executive session, we can have a little bite to eat and then come back no earlier than 2. Now, of course, if we go on till 2, we'll reassess, and then budget will follow EMLA. So we'll be addressing in executive sessions, in executive session, questions relating to the Kilohana Hula Show, as well as questions raised in item number 1 pertaining to the allowable uses such as licenses or forbidden uses, as the case may be and as was discussed in item 1. The following persons will be participating in executive session: the trustees, that is all the council members present, Deputy Corporation Counsel Erica Osterkamp, Office of Counsel Services, Attorneys Kyle Shiroma and Lloyd Yoshioka. And I understand we also have the Deputy Corporation Counsel from DES who will be participating. Trustees, are there any objections to convening into executive session?
Chair, could I
Yes.
also ask that my staffer, Somerset Yamamoto, be included?
Yes.
Thank you.
And my Chief of Staff, Jocelyn Doan.
Yes. Anyone else? Okay. Should we also, okay. That being the case, hearing no objections, the Kapiolani Park trustees will be convening into a closed meeting pursuant to HRS sections 92-4 and 92-5A4 to consult with its attorneys on questions and issues pertaining to the powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities of the city, the council, and its committees relating to the Kilohana Hula Show. Will remain seated in the council chamber for executive session. All non-executive session staff must vacate the chamber, and the video recording and audio broadcast of the meeting shall cease until we reconvene from executive session. All right, clerks, before you leave, we've turned off the audio.
Yes, Chair, we have.
Okay. And no unauthorized person currently has access.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, Great. I now call recess. It's 1:05. The Kapiolani Park Trustees meeting is reconvened. It's 1:51 p.m. We are reconvening following our executive session in which we discussed, pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statute Sections 92-4 and 92-5A4, to consult with our attorneys on questions and issues pertaining to the powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and or liabilities of the city, the council and its committees relating to the Kilohana Hula Show, as well as questions, legal questions of the same nature raised in item number 1 pertaining to allowable uses of the park land, such as licenses and forbidden uses as the case may be. At this time, we've exhausted our agenda, and so there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. It's 1:52. Thank you. Oh, there's an announcement that EMLA will start at 2:15, and then budget will follow EMLA.